When a new Super Smash Bros. Comes around, there's only one thing people care about above all else. Who is going to be in it? Who's coming back and who's going to make their Smash debut? Everyone, and I mean everyone, has their own ideas for characters they think are worthy of joining the cast, and there are just so many factors to discuss and consider that speculating like this is just so much fun. Being the avid Smash fan that I am, I figured it was time for me to give you guys my own personal preferences. These are the 10 characters I personally want to see in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. But this isn't just a complete wish list. There are some characters that everyone is proposing that I actually agree with, so you will see some highly requested characters here, even if I'm not their biggest fan, because I still think they should be playable for what they would add to the roster. For this list I have 3 rules. Rule number 1, the character must have originated from a video game, so no Goku or Captain N, sorry. Number 2, the character must have had at least one game on a Nintendo system. As much as I would love to see Sly Cooper or Cole McGrath square off against the Nintendo cast, it's not gonna happen. And rule number 3, this is my list of characters I personally would love to see. I'm not expecting every single one of these characters to make the cut. Heck, some I don't think will make it at all. But that doesn't stop me from wanting them all the same. You don't have to agree with my picks, but if they really do upset you, why not make your own list instead of explaining to me how bad mine is? With all of that out of the way, on with the countdown! When it comes to Geno, either you've never heard of him, or you're sick of hearing about him because he's everywhere. I loved Mario RPG, and I love Geno's character. He's a possessed puppet doll that has arm cannons and can shoot laser beams. How cool is that? He's been out of commission for such a long time that I feel Smash Bros. Is the perfect place to revive him. Heck, it worked for Pit and the Ice Climbers. If Geno is to ever build up relevance in the industry again, I couldn't think of a better place to start than a series that revives old, forgotten characters and makes them popular again. I know full well that Square Enix has him on a pretty tight leash, but if by some miracle they gave Nintendo the rights to use him, even if it was just for Smash Bros., he would be a perfect fit in my opinion. He has the moveset potential, and on top of that, he wouldn't just be a third-party character. In his one true game, he fought alongside Mario, so in a sense, we'd be spiritually getting a new and unique Mario newcomer as well. There are several music tracks that were found within Brawl's data but cannot be accessed through normal means, obviously. They're known as the Lost Tracks on YouTube. One of the songs that was going to be a potential music track in Brawl was Beware the Forest Mushrooms. Don't believe me? The axed rendition of said song is playing right now in this video. It exists. This doesn't confirm that Geno is going to be a character for Brawl, but if a Mario RPG music track was in the works, and one that has practically become this character's theme song, then Super Mario RPG was obviously on the developers' minds, and at some point they could have possibly considered Geno for a character. However, as much as I really want to see Geno again, the reason he's only number 10 is because I don't have much hope at all for him, honestly. He's not first party, which hurts his chances significantly compared to other characters on this list, and I don't have faith that Square Enix would come through for us on this one. If they won't let Nintendo use him, and they aren't even willing to put him in their own games, then Geno's chances of appearing in anything ever again don't look too good. But the most glaring issue with this character is that Geno only appeared in one game way back on the Super Nintendo. He has not appeared as a playable character in any game since then. Yes, he had a cameo in Superstar Saga, but that doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. The character is so obscure, in fact, that I don't think enough people even know who he is. If you're watching this right now and have never heard of this guy, or only know about him because his cult following won't stop bringing him up everywhere, then you probably don't want him for Smash. Then again, Pit was a pretty obscure and borderline forgotten character before Smash Bros., and look at him now. He's off to bigger and better things. Same thing could happen for Geno. Maybe. Bottom line is, do I think Geno's chances for getting in Smash Bros. Are that great? No, not at all. Would I still like to see him? Absolutely. Okay, I confess that I'm not really a big fan of this guy or F-Zero in general. In fact, F-Zero has become such a small series in comparison to Nintendo's other franchises that Sakurai might not feel it even deserves any more representation outside of what it gets already. However, I do support what Black Shadow would represent if he were to get into Smash Bros. Captain Falcon has been on his own since the original Super Smash Bros., and I think Black Shadow would be a great choice if we were to get another one. I know a lot of people advocate for Samurai Goro instead since he is Captain Falcon's rival, and I could definitely see his potential as a samurai fighter since he was an assist trophy in Brawl. If they choose him, great, but if he's just going to be an assist trophy once again, I figure Black Shadow is the next best thing. But here's the kicker. He'd be another villain, and he's similar enough to Captain Falcon that he could potentially take Ganondorf's moveset and run with it. It would work just great for Black Shadow, with some obvious revisions of course, to not make him a complete clone. But do you know what that would mean? They would have no choice but to finally give Ganondorf his own moveset. Maybe with a sword even. No more of that trolling taunt. I know you all want Ganondorf to get his own moveset. I mean, he's the Lord of Evil for crying out loud. He's capable of so much more than being a clone. So help Black Shadow to potentially help Ganondorf. It's the right thing to do and you know it. I love this guy. I really do. I haven't even played Skyward Sword, but even I'm familiar with the impact this guy has left. He's creepy, charismatic, charming, and insane all at once. Since Link, Zelda, and most likely Ganondorf as well, are sticking with their Twilight Princess designs, again, it would be criminal for Nintendo to not represent Skyward Sword. Yes, we're getting Skyloft as a stage, but why not go the extra mile and make Ghiraim a character since he's one of the things people remember most about Skyward Sword. He's got projectiles, and he can wield dual swords. I can't think of another character currently in Smash Bros. That can do that. Can you? I know people argue that he was just a one-time villain like Zant or Vaati. Well, it looks to me like this version of Smash Bros. Is all about promoting the latest games in the franchises. Characters are getting revealed to coincide with video game releases, and most of the revealed stages come from some of the most recent Nintendo games. Maybe it's about time we go with one of the side villains as a character. So why not go with the one who has the most bizarre yet interesting and memorable personality? And if that's not good enough, then they could just make him an assist trophy like Skull Kid. So let's make Lady Gaga, I mean Ghiraim, a playable character. Whenever I think about potential characters for Super Smash Bros., I think about not only what they could stand for and contribute to the roster, but also about what's holding them back. What has kept them out of the series so far that could do so again this time around? For Ridley, it could be the controversy with his size, for example. But when I think of King K. Rool, nothing really comes to mind. There's really no reason for him to not be in Super Smash Bros. Other than that he hasn't been in a game in a while. But he could return as the main villain anytime he wanted to. Nintendo and Retro Studios just obviously don't feel like using him at the moment. But he's not owned by Rare, so licensing isn't an issue, unlike Geno or another character on this list. So there really isn't any excuse at all from what I've gathered. But what would King K. Rool offer, you ask? Well, he has plenty of source material from the DKC trilogy to make for an effective moveset, Donkey Kong could use another character, and he'd fit in right alongside the likes of Bowser and King Dedede as a heavyweight villain. And this doesn't really mean much for my argument, but I think it's still worth mentioning that he's a magnificent singer.
Now that I have the power, this is my finest hour. Nothing on this earth can stop me now.
So what's stopping King K. Rool from getting in, you ask? Maybe another DK character? I know people suggest Dixie Kong instead since she's playable in Tropical Freeze and was one of Brawl's Forbidden 7, but if they did go with Dixie, I worry that they would just make her a semi-Diddy Kong clone, and do we really need another clone? I mean, people thought she could be partnered in a tag team with Diddy Kong, but since he's already been revealed to be on his own, that idea is out. Technically, she could still get in on her own, but would she really be that interesting as her own character? Sure, she has some differences from Diddy, but she really doesn't bring anything aesthetic variety to the roster. So, I don't believe she's the best overall choice for the Donkey Kong series in terms of newcomer. I think King K. Rool would be much more interesting in both aesthetics and moveset, so I think it's time to get this guy in Super Smash Bros. Already. But if they troll us by putting in Cranky Kong, then so help me, I'm gonna! I really feel Krystal gets a lot of unnecessary hate. I don't know if it's just because Dinosaur Planet was supposed to be its own game before it turned into Star Fox Adventures, or because Star Fox already has 3 characters and it's a pretty small series that doesn't need as much representation as Mario, Zelda, or Pokemon, or even just because furries. But I personally think Krystal has plenty of merit to become a character. She's a female, and she has the potential for a staff wielder moveset, which isn't a style we've seen in Smash Bros. Yet. I know a lot of people don't like her because when she was introduced, the Star Fox series was going through changes, and the games just weren't the same anymore after she joined the team. Okay, but she made a big impact on the franchise as a whole, right? And you're telling me that doesn't warrant inclusion? Look, Super Smash Bros. Is all about representing Nintendo's history, and I think the company could stand to represent this mixed period because history is about both the ups and the downs, not just the good times but also the bad. And this time wasn't even that bad, just different. But my point is that Star Fox has an interesting history because Krystal has changed it. A story is more interesting when it doesn't follow a linear path. The Star Fox series has grown and changed because of Krystal. It wouldn't have gotten to where it is today in quite the same way without her, and because of the fact that Nintendo still acknowledges Star Fox as a series, and because of the fact that it still has fans wanting a new game from it, I think it would look good on Nintendo's part to show that this franchise's history hasn't always been so straightforward, and that it did take some twists and turns. The fact that Nintendo even listed Virtual Boy games in the Chronicles section of Brawl proves that they're already taking this step. But I do agree that Star Fox doesn't really need 4 characters. Not until it gets some new games and reestablishes itself as a prominent Nintendo staple anyway. So in that case, someone would have to go. It can't be Fox, obviously, and I wouldn't get rid of Falco either since he's been a popular veteran in the series since Melee, and as long as they continue to revise his moveset to make him more different from Fox, I see no reason for him to leave. That only leaves Wolf. I like what he represented as a villain and a rival, but if they're just going to be as lazy with his moveset as they were in Brawl, he needs to go. I mean, he's a semi-clone of Fox, which Falco already had that base covered, and a Landmaster Final Smash, really? When has Wolf ever used a Landmaster in the games? If Wolf can't become more original, then it's time for him to give up his spot for Krystal in my book. But if they were to give her a Landmaster too, I'm going to seriously start questioning their creativity.